So let's just start at the beginning. Why is it so important to track these metrics? What are they telling us? Why? Yeah, why is so important?
Yeah, good question. So even as a business as a whole, it's important to track. And when you're thinking about launching, it's also important to track. So it's both times. But really, as a
Hmm.
business as a whole, you want to be able to quickly know the health and wealth of your business. You want to know where your customers are coming from in terms of what channels, what sources. Is it social media? Are they coming from your emails? Where are you getting customers? And what actions they're taking once they find you, so that you can
Hmm.
optimize and capitalize on what's working for your business. On the other
Yeah,
side, you
exactly.
also want to know, am I doing things that isn't really giving me a great return on investment? Are myself or my team spending time on things and we're not getting customers from it, we're not getting sales from it, and therefore maybe we shouldn't be concentrating so much effort on those things. And so it kind of helps on both sides of things. So I like to tell
Hmm.
business owners, I want to look at your business holistically. And so when we're looking at numbers, we're going to look at three main areas: your finances, obviously, because you're in business and this is not a hobby. And so, yes, we do want to break down some of those numbers on your P&L statement, because it's not just the revenue that you're getting in. We have to look at those expenses as well and what you're actually left with in terms of your profit.
Exactly.
And then second area, of course, is your marketing. Whether you're brick and mortar or you're an online business, marketing is a piece of the game. And so really looking at how customers are coming to us, what they're doing when they're coming to us, and what efforts we're using to really maximize the time that we're spending there. And then the third area I
Hmm.
call operations or team. And so if you're a solopreneur or whether you have a team, this is also important. You want to know what client activities or certain services, depending on your business, you're spending the most time on, and what's that return on investment. If you have a membership, for example, what's that churn rate? Is there a certain time period when people are
Hmm.
staying and then they're leaving? And what can you do to increase that? If you have a team, what's your return on investment on your team members? What activities are they doing? And that's really affecting your bottom line. So, what I try to do is measure metrics from each of those three areas, but always bring it into what your business goals are for the next 6 to 12
Hmm.
months, because that's really the measuring stick, right? So, if you have certain goals for your business, we want to make sure that we're measuring, are you getting to those goals? Are you reaching them? Are you exceeding them? Where are we in that realm?
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause like you said, numbers will tell you whether you have to fix this or if you can take it even further and scale it, improve it. It's often easy to, if the numbers looking good, it's easy to make those numbers look even better. And once you actually do see that things are working, but
Yes.
I mean, it's just like with launches. If you have a launch that's basically failing, it's easy to think that, okay, well, screw this, it's failing, nothing worked, so uh, let's not try this again. But obviously, if you look at it as a way of learning from those mistakes, and you do the same thing with the numbers. If the numbers are not good, okay, what are we doing wrong here? What is the cause of this, and how can we figure out to make it better? Should we cut it out? What's the next step,
Yeah,
right?
for sure, Ken. And when we're looking at numbers, there's kind of two kinds. So we're going to look at things that we call leading and things that we call lagging. So, just as an
Hmm.
example, those lagging numbers are things that have already happened. And so we're looking at it after the
Right.
fact, right? So maybe our revenue
Hmm.
after a launch or our sales, those kind of things, they've already been done. We're looking at them after and saying, okay, how did it go? Our leading
Hmm.
things are things like our marketing. How many people are we getting into our sales funnel? How many eyeballs are seeing that we're actually launching this new service or product to begin with? And so those leading metrics become really important when we are going to launch, whether it's a new product or it's something you've already launched before, but really honing into
Hmm.
those leading metrics. Because if we look at them from the beginning before we actually launch and we know what we want to track, then during the launch, we can have those numbers right front and center for us. So either you as a leader or someone on your team can be looking at those numbers daily during the launch. And that's where the real nuggets are, because that's when you can tweak live during the launch and really make a
Hmm.
difference. So I'll just give a
Yeah, that's
client
exactly what I was
example.
thinking.
I was working with a client recently, and she had her metrics set up before the launch. We had made her a launch dashboard. So kind of like the dashboard in your car. So you can quickly see
Hmm.
what was happening during the launch. And we noticed that the mobile views to the checkout page was quite low. We thought, it's 2022. We're pretty sure people are buying on their phones. What's happening? And so,
Most likely.
yeah, so we dug in a little bit further. Well, sure enough, there were enough people coming to the sales page. So lots of people were getting to the sales page. They were getting to the checkout page, but then they weren't actually buying. Okay, so what's happening? So we dug in further, and when we looked at the layout of the checkout page, the CTA button was very low on mobile view compared to desktop. So that's that call to action button that we want people to press and say, yes, buy now. And so when we moved that up higher on mobile view, more people saw it, more people took action right away, and the sales went up on mobile. So just a simple tweak we never would have known if we didn't dig into the numbers.
And you think it's so ridiculous. I mean, aren't you on the checkout page to actually buy? So wouldn't you just scroll just a little bit down to find that button? But clearly not.
Clearly
It's like,
not.
oh, I don't see the checkout button. So, okay, well, I guess I'm not buying then.
Yes. And it's such a simple thing, right? And you would think it wouldn't have made it, but it made a difference. And so just by looking at those numbers on a daily basis, you can see little things like that and tweak it. You're not going to totally revamp your product, obviously, during the launch, but small things like that can make a difference and ultimately, change the success of your launch.
Absolutely. And let's say you are on the verge of breaking even or losing money on the launch, that little tweak can actually make you go above breaking even.
Yeah, exactly.
And you wouldn't have known that if you actually didn't look at the numbers or the data during the launch.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I come to mind is that I think a lot of people think about when they think about numbers and tracking all that, it trips them up because they, how do I track all this? Do I have to use some certain software? Where do I find the numbers? How do I connect all of this? It might seem a little bit overwhelming for people who are not, not interested in figuring it out, or they're just scared of trying to get on into the tech and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And so what I like to do is tell people to start simple at the beginning. And so before you're going to launch a product, really sit and look at, okay, what are my goals for this launch? Certainly you're going to have revenue goals, but even in that, I encourage you to have good, better, and best revenue goals. So your good goal is if you've launched something like this previously, that's something you know is attainable. Then your better is a little bit higher and your best is a stretch. But that gives you a cushion because, there's a lot of pressure on business owners when they're launching to reach a certain revenue amount. And this kind of gives you a cushion to say, okay, we've made it this far. Can we get to best or can we get to better? And so it's not based on just one number. If we don't make that number, we're a complete fail. So that's one thing to start to look at. And then from there, what are your other goals in terms of the launch? And so maybe you want to be looking at your team and how your team is doing. What's the stress level of your team members leading up to the launch and during the launch? You want to be looking at even your stress level and your time level. Maybe you decided you're going to do a live every day leading up to the launch, and partway through you're like, oh, this is just way too much. I can't do this. These are all good things to learn and then tweak again for the next launch. So it's not just about revenue is really what I'm saying here. So you figure out what metrics you really want to track. And another piece of that is really looking at your sales funnel as a whole funnel and making sure that you know what the conversion is at each step. So let's say, for example, your customer journey is that you have a webinar to start with to bring people into your audience. So you want to know how many people attended, how long did they stay on the webinar? And then from there, how many people went from the webinar to your sales page? From your sales page to your checkout page. And then, of course, your checkout page to thank you or whatever you have after that. And measure the conversion rate each step along that customer journey. Because, again, you could be getting a lot of eyeballs on one part of it, and people are dropping off at different parts, and you don't know where or why. And so by actually measuring the conversion each step of the way, you can see, oh, okay, yeah, lots of people made it to the checkout page, but they didn't buy. So either there was something off with my pricing, there was something off with the checkout page. Did I have a cart abandonment sequence set up so that those who made it there got a few nudges to say, hey, I noticed you were here, those sorts of things. And so you can tweak based on what those conversion rates are along the way. So not just measuring my overall funnel performance was X, but actually each step of the way looking at what that conversion
Hmm.
rate is. And so those are the
Yeah.
main ones that I encourage people to look at, especially with launching. Of course, when it comes to your whole business, that's another story. But those ones, if you
Yeah.
can measure those before you start a launch, then you're in good shape in terms of, making sure you're getting enough people to start with at the top of your funnel. Certainly,
Hmm.
if you're running
And
ads, then you want to be, tracking that as well, because that's your dollars,
mhm,
right? Yeah.
absolutely.